Today on The Lab, I'm Amber MacArthur. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? The most interesting dating sites online.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you, and welcome to... That's like fingernails on a chalkboard, isn't it? Welcome to the lab. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. It's Tim Tams. Look at this. From B. Drennan, New West, BC. I guess we were talking about these. These are very popular in Australia, you know.
Okay, I've never heard of them.
Would you like a Tim Tam? Wait a minute. Who's been eating my Tim Tams? They're half gone. Arnott's Tim Tams.
They're like penguin bars.
They probably are penguin bars with a different name.
Yeah, they're penguins.
Yeah. Or like Kit Kat. I won't eat it now because there's nothing worse than a host. Ooh, that does look good.
Yeah, it's like a penguin.
Yep. Is it?
Yeah,
it's a penguin. Is there an Arnott's in England?
I don't know.
I bet it's the same. Oh, well. Anyway, thank you to B. Drennan for sending those along. Not that we are soliciting for free food, but chocolate's always welcome.
I do like dark chocolate.
This is episode 178. Kate Abraham, ladies and gentlemen. Also coming up, Kate Milbury is going to talk about open source software. How does it work? How does it? Why? How? But yeah, I don't. It's free. I don't. Anyway, we'll talk. Amber MacArthur's going to be here.
Yes.
I guess she's looking for love because she's going to talk about dating 2.0 websites.
Well, she's obviously in the right place. Florida's looking very warm, very sunny.
Out there. Oh, I'll tell you. And then Ryan Ewell, how does he find his jewels? He's got some tips for finding great free files, the places he goes. He's going to give you all his secrets. But the most important part of this show is the callers. We've got some great ones. Let's get right to them. What do you say?
Okay, actually, we're going back to Florida.
Yeah.
We're going to Kissimmee. I'm hoping I pronounced that right rather than Kissimmee.
I think it's Kissimmee.
Kissimmee. And Stephen.
Stephen, is it? Thank you, Kate. Is it Kissimmee or Kissimmee?
Kissimmee.
Kissimmee. I've been saying it wrong all this time. Hi, Stephen. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Good afternoon.
What can I do for you today?
Well, I love the internet, and I like to listen to internet radio.
It sounds like a song. I love the internet. Yes, and you listen to internet audio?
I listen to a lot of the internet radio streaming shows, like Magnatune, Pandora.
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about. Pandora is Magnatune is a kind of internet music site where you can get great independent music. Pandora is an internet radio station that's amazing, mind-blowing. Yeah, these are all great. So what's the problem?
Well, all I can say is that I'm hearing static when I listen to the streaming audio. And I'm not quite sure exactly how it happens. I have broadband.
Okay. And it works, and it's the same on all of these things?
Yes, it does.
And when you listen to other audio on your computer, you don't hear that static?
Exactly.
And is it describe this static? Is it a pop, a click? What are you hearing?
Well, it's some of both. I mean, if I were to kind of give it any kind of relativity, back in the days when they had records, the vinyl records, and then you put the needle on, you'd hear those little pops and clicks.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
How very odd. Since other audio sounds fine, we know that it's not your speakers, it's not your sound card, it's not your system. It must be something about streaming. Does it do it on all kinds of streaming or just some streaming channels?
Well, so far I've been able to on all. Like I can go to YouTube and I hear it. I can hear it on Music Box.
Boy, that's odd.
I mean, you name it. Except for now when I play CDs, you never hear it.
You never hear it on CDs. Now, CDs, I have to say, play back in a different way. CDs bypass your sound card completely. They get played directly into the speakers. If you look inside your PC, there's a connection from the sound card that goes right to the CD player, and so it just kind of doesn't, because it's already kind of digitized. It doesn't need any sound card support. So now I'm curious. When you play back a digitized song, do you ever have digitized songs that you play back with Windows Media Player? A CD, in other words, a CD is not a good test.
Okay.
I want you to play back some audio from your hard drive and hear if that clicks.
Okay.
See, a CD is bypassing the A to D conversion. It's completely bypassing the sound card. I can't think of any reason why streaming audio would have any static at all. And then I'll tell you why. It's digitized packets that come in. Now, it is true that streaming audio uses UDP instead of TCP. There's two different internet protocols. You've heard of TCP/IP. TCP is most commonly used, but for streaming audio and video, it often uses UDP because it's faster. It doesn't have as much error checking. So UDP could conceivably have more errors. That's why I was asking you what kinds of streams you're getting this on. But static seems pretty unlikely. I think we're going to have to think that it has something to do with your sound card at this point. A CD wouldn't be a good test. A DVD wouldn't be a good test. You have to play back some audio from your hard drive. Now, if you play back audio from your hard drive and you hear that static, then it is your sound card. Tell me a little bit about your computer. How old is it?
It's probably about 4.5 years old.
Okay. Do you know if you have a separate sound card or if the sound is coming from the motherboard? When you look at the back of the, well, I guess you can't really tell from looking at the back of the computer, but if you had a sound card, then it'd be easy enough to replace it.
Yeah, it's that Realtek 97.
Oh, yeah, that's the motherboard video. What I'm going to suggest you do is go to your local computer store. You can get a sound card cheap, like 20 bucks. I mean, really cheap. They're not expensive. And put it in. What'll happen is the computer will say, oh, you got a new sound card. It'll install drivers for it. Windows will recognize it in almost all cases. And you may or may not have to disable the motherboard sound in the BIOS. Most of the time you do not. I think that's going to fix it. But the one diagnostic I want you to do is to download something, put it on your hard drive and play it back. In other words, not stream it, not a CD, not a DVD, but an audio file playing from your hard drive.
Well, I did another download. I used the YouTube downloader.
Yeah.
And to get a video. Mm-hmm. And when I converted it to a MPEG format,
yeah,
there was no static in that audio.
Dang-nabbit. Now you've ruined my theory. So you did play that back and you didn't hear the static.
Right.
I still think that it's something to do with the sound card. What I think is probably happening is there's an interaction of some sort between the driver for your sound card and the buffer that the incoming audio is using. You might go online to the manufacturer of the computer, see if you can get a later Realtek driver. That might fix the problem. It's a very unusual problem. You shouldn't hear any static on digital sound coming into your computer. You just shouldn't.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's not like radio, where you get static. If you had radio frequency, RF reception, and there's static, that's normal, but that's not what's going on with streaming. It's digital. So I think what you want to do is see if you can find a newer driver for that audio card. If not, maybe replace the audio card. I'm pretty sure that's going to fix the problem. I really am. All right, Stephen?
All right.
How's the weather in Kissimmee?
Well, we got about 70 degrees.
Beautiful, sun is shining. I'm envious. Have a great day in Florida. We're going to actually go back to Florida in just a little bit. Amber MacArthur is going to talk about dating. Before we do that, though, Kate Milbury is here. She's going to talk about the politics of open source. How is it that open source is so successful? It's free software. And people donate their time. What is this? Is it anarchy? Is it communism? We'll talk about it a little bit when the lab continues. You stay right here. Welcome back to the lab. Kate Milbury is here. She is an activist, political activist, social activist, co-founder of Room Magazine. She edited that for 7 years out of Windsor, Ontario. Is now a doctoral candidate at Simon Fraser University and the author of the Geeks and Global Justice website, geeksandglobaljustice.com. Kate, it's good to have you back. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad we could talk about this because it's often a point of interest and sometimes contention, the notion that software could be free, could be open source, that somebody would work so hard on something and not charge you money for it. Why is it that there even exists a free and open source software movement?
Well, I think if we go back to Richard Stallman, one of the original MIT hackers who's working on the precursor to the internet, which was the ARPANET, there was a hacker ethic that had developed, which was this practice of sharing information, sharing code, helping one another in their projects. And Stallman really reacted to the increasing sort of corporatization of the computing industry and and software was becoming proprietary, which was this weird thing for all these hackers. Their idea was that information wants to be free. So he founded the free software movement in 1983, and this is his website here for the Free Software Foundation. And it was just trying to protect these freedoms of the user, the freedom to run a program for whatever reason, the freedom to make changes, to study the program, the freedom to redistribute it, to share with your neighbor, and the freedom to make improvements and release those improvements to the public. So the idea of free software is protecting users' freedoms.
Right. So it really is political from day one. It's
Absolutely.
about politics. It's about being an activist. And by the way, Linux wouldn't exist without the Free Software Foundation.
Absolutely.
There's a huge amount of open source software now and hundreds of thousands of programmers working on it. It obviously succeeded.
Yeah, definitely. And Richard Stallman developed an operating system, the GNU operating
Right.
system, and it became complete with the Linux kernel.
Right.
And from there, things really, I guess, snowballed. And
It helped that the internet came along and allowed people to connect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think most users don't realize that they're probably using free software every day. If you have Firefox as your browser, for example, that has 16% of the web browser
Right.
market share right now. So
If you surf the net, even if you use Microsoft Windows and Internet Explorer, those web pages are being served often by
Absolutely.
Apache, an open source
Yeah.
software project. Yeah.
Yeah, so for users, it doesn't have to be political, but what Stallman is trying to promote is the idea that we need to value not just stuff as free. So he says, don't think of free beer, don't think of free things, think of free speech.
That's important. It's free as in liberated, not free as in no cost.
Although there is no cost as well.
Frequently there's no
yeah,
cost.
And
yeah.
therein lies the confusion.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you want to talk a little bit about the distinction between free software and open source, there is a difference, and some open source software can be sold.
Right. Well, we just saw MySQL, which is a big open source database, sold to Sun for $1 billion. I mean, that doesn't sound like political activism at all. It sounds like plain old capitalism.
Well, and it is, but the political aspect is that the code remains open, and that those freedoms, those four essential freedoms
Right.
that are protected by open source and free software licensing, they still remain there. So you cannot close down access to any open source software.
So Sun can't buy MySQL and say, okay, it's a commercial product and you can't modify it. The license requires that it still be open source. What does that mean to somebody like me who's not a programmer? I'm not going to go and take my word processor, OpenOffice, and modify the code.
Absolutely, and neither am I.
Right.
I'm just a simple user. I'm not one of
So
these.
I think a lot of times users say, well, so what if it's open source?
I think I equate open source with open web, and increasingly we're seeing what I call the closing down of the web. So the increasing corporatization of web space and restricted access, and there's talk of two-tiering internet access and so forth. So that the user, if you may be unaware of it, but at some point you might have your access to either speed or just space on the internet restricted or denied.
Well, and when companies like Microsoft start to set web standards, proprietary commercial web standards that they own, that really limits what the rest of us can do. We have to, it's Microsoft's way or the highway.
Absolutely.
And that's not what we want.
No, I don't think so. I think we want to defend the idea, and I believe that free software does this, the idea of the web as an open and accessible public sphere,
Right.
a public virtual sphere, if you will, that it's accessible to all, and it's not dependent on whether you can afford it or not.
I often think of it as something like the highway system, where it's almost required that it be open, that it be available to all. That's how the economy functions. You can have commercial enterprises, you can have truckers, and we can drive our own car, but you need kind of a basis of open, non-proprietary, non-commercial software to keep the internet flowing, to keep
Absolutely.
it working.
And I think the important thing to remember about information, it's a non-depletable resource. So if I have some information and then I share that with you, I still have the information. Unlike if I have an apple and I eat it, then you haven't, sorry, but you're out of luck.
Right.
And so this idea of privatizing information is really antithetical
How
to...
can you own bits?
Well, clearly in our sort of society, you can own anything. I mean,
Right.
we're talking about privatizing water, and
Right.
what is next? The air we breathe. I mean,
Right.
but are there some fundamental things that we as a society believe should be open and available
Right.
to all? And we have said, yes, there are things that we value communally, and
Yes.
that we believe should be accessible to all citizens regardless of class, the ability to
Right.
pay, and so on.
I think it's very, very important. You have a website where people can go to find out more about free software, yes?
Yes, this free software directory is from the Free Software Software Foundation.
Free as in liberated, not free as in free beer.
That's right, free as in free speech. Your ability to have your essential freedoms in cyberspace as well as in real space. And so you can go here and check out some various projects and so on. And also, if you just want to change your browser to Firefox,
I highly recommend that. Yep.
It's as easy as click of a button, click of a mouse there, so you can download it for free, and it installs and has all sorts of updates and plugins. And it's
Who
really
knew that was a political act?
and it is. It absolutely is.
Support open standards, free software, because it's good for all of us. It needs to exist. I couldn't agree more. Kate's sites are actlab, actlab.org. That's the project you're doing at Simon Fraser University.
Yeah, with Dr. Andrew Feenberg.
That's exciting. And geeksandglobaljustice.com. And I'm glad that there are people like you who can bridge this gap. A lot of times the geeks who work in open source software, Stallman's a very good example, aren't great at talking about it, you know? He's very prickly. I've interviewed him many times. He's a brilliant guy, and he's changed the world. But he may be not the best at explaining his ideas, so it's good that people like you exist to help us understand it. Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it. And right on. I mean, it's something we talk about on the show all the time. There are places for standards, places for commercial software, but ultimately non-proprietary, open, free is very important for all of us to have an ecology that we can participate in. All right, we're going to take a break coming up in just a bit more of your calls, but first, what the tech is that? We've zoomed in on something you'd find around the lab. Sean Carruthers does it with his super duper macro lens. What could it be? Well, stick around. We'll zoom out and find out when the lab continues. Okay, that's a close-up of something you'd commonly find around the lab, but what the heck? What the tech is it? Why, that's the Doomsday Device USB Hub. We had a lot of fun with that. I remember that very well. That was the one where you flip the switches, you turn the key, and then it explodes, right? Not it just makes an explosion sound. That's a lot of fun. I would not have guessed that one. He does such a good job with that macro lens. Now, let's ask Kate Abraham for another call. Oh, we got a caller, I think.
We have a great caller. This is Adam.
Fiddler.
Yeah, Adam with no A, so ADM from Hamilton, Ontario.
Hey, Adam.
Hi, Leo.
How are you? Are you a fiddler?
Yes, I'm a violinist, yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't call you a fiddler, a violinist.
That's okay.
It looks like fun. What can I do for you today?
Well, it's kind of a curious situation. I seem to have fixed the problem, but I'm kind of curious as to what to do now.
Okay.
I had a really big scare about 2 months ago where I thought that I was going to lose everything on my big storage hard drive.
Yeah.
So all my pictures, my movies, my music. So through a bunch of research and digging around, it turns out that it was just my master boot sector was corrupt.
Oh, interesting.
So I was able to copy my backup boot sector to the primary one, and it fixed the problem. And then about 3 weeks later, basically the same thing happened, but it was both boot sectors were corrupt, and I was able to write a brand new one. So now I'm curious, is this going to keep happening? Is my drive dying?
Well, that's a good question. Why is your MBR dying? Now, the master boot record is the very first sector on the hard drive, and it's kind of critical. It's what the operating system, actually what the hardware uses to load the operating system. So the very first thing that happens when a computer boots up is the BIOS wakes up. It's a very primitive program. It says, oh, I'm a computer, and I've got, yes, disk drives. Let's see what's on them. Let's jump to the first sector. The first sector says, it's a program, essentially, a very small one. It says, yes, and we have operating systems, and go there to load it. Now, if something goes wrong on that master boot sector, what will happen is the BIOS will jump up, say, I'm a computer, here's a disk drive, let's load an operating system, and then that's it. Nothing will happen. You'll get a blinking question mark, or the computer will say, no operating system present, which is, I presume, the error message you were getting.
No, not at all, because my operating system's on a different drive.
Well, then you don't need, okay, I know what's going on now. It's not your master boot record, it's your partition table, which is also loaded in your MBR. So if the partition table gets damaged, no problem, you're not going to have to load a operating system from that, but what will happen is you can't see what's on the drive. So what did the drive look like? It looked like it was unformatted?
Basically, when I clicked on it, it said, drive is not formatted.
Yeah.
Would you like to format now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bad partition table, which is also stored there. So why would your partition table get corrupt? Well, that can happen for a lot of different reasons. It happens all the time, and it is kind of catastrophic. It doesn't mean your data is not there at all. it's not exactly like the FATs being destroyed, the file allocation table, the table of contents, but it's kind of like that. It's the partition record which says this is where the drive is, this is what the geometry of the drive is, this is how it's partitioned. If there's no information, the computer can't read the contents of the drive. It says, I'm sorry, we got to reformat this and create a new partition table. Fixing the MBR with a generic partition table probably isn't a good idea, so it's lucky you had a backup. There could be some various reasons. It could be that the drive is starting, that sector that it's stored on is flaky. But the fact that you were able to rewrite it and it worked for a while and then it started going bad again, sounds like something more serious is going on. The drive is corrupting its partition table. That could be a software problem, that could be a program that you're running, it could be a lot of different things. How long did it take before it corrupted again?
About 3 weeks, and when it corrupted again, it was both the backup and the MBR were no good. I was using a program called Test Disk, which was, phenomenal. It meant that I didn't have to try and use data recovery to recover it.
Yeah, it was able to rebuild that. Yeah, that's, it's cause for concern. I would certainly back up all your data. You might want to look at getting another drive. What I generally do, and this is not, I recommend this program to people, but the problem is it costs more than a new drive does. So sometimes it's not a good choice for people, but it's a program that Steve Gibson, who is a regular on the show, created called SpinRite, S-P-I-N-R-I-T-E. Now it's about $80 or $90. That's the problem. You get a new drive for that price.
Well, the first thing I did was I went out and got an external terabyte. So
good. So you're gonna be backed up. What SpinRite does is it goes through all the sectors of the drive. It's not a file recovery program. It won't recover if your operating system has corrupted the data. It won't recover it in that sense. What it really is a disk maintenance program. It actually tests the disk at a very low level. It would test those master boot records and see if they are usable, and then fix them. Now, the fact, I don't know if your hard drive is going bad or if there's some software corrupting it, and that's the problem. That's the thing we can't tell. What version of Windows are you using?
XP.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the operating system's doing this to you, but I do think it's probably time for a new drive. Well, the advantage of SpinRite is it'll test the drive and tell you with absolute certainty whether it's the drive that's a problem or something else is the problem. But it's so much money that it's probably cheaper just to buy a new drive and leave it at that. I certainly wouldn't trust that drive. I think it's going to continue to happen. Probably the drive's going bad, Adam, is I guess my answer. Can't be sure unless you run something like SpinRite on it, but probably that's what's going on.
That's fine. I have 3 internal drives and an external.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your music. I mean, that's the thing. You make backups, use other drives, and just don't trust that 300.
Alrighty.
Okay?
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It's hard for me to tell exactly what's wrong in a case like that. It could be that the partition table is getting corrupted by some software that's running.
Yeah, and if it's another separate drive completely, it could even be a bad cable inside the case.
That's a very good point. Let's say it's an external. I think it's an external drive. If that cable's bad, it's writing, and all of a sudden it goes, and that could ruin the partition table. So that could be something like that. That's a very good point. It could be just bad cabling. Something to look at also. All right, we're going to take a break. Amber MacArthur's coming up. I guess she's looking for love. She's going to do a review of the new dating sites, Dating 2.0. But first, let's take our quiz question of the day. In which year was light first used as a carrier medium for an audio signal? Basically fiber optics, right? Is that what we're talking about? Or not? Optical cables, right? No. Optical audio. Was it 81, 65, 52, or 1880? I don't know. Let's think about that. And I'll tell you what, when we come back a little later on, we'll tell you as the lab continues. Welcome back to the lab. Look who's here, Amber MacArthur, my favorite co-host. Hi, Amber. How are you? She's in Florida. Look at this.
I know.
Out in the sunshine. I'm jealous.
It's beautiful. It's nice to have my laptop near the ocean and be hanging out.
Well, it looks like you must be looking for love because we're going to cover dating sites today.
We sure are. And if you remember a couple years ago on Call for Help, we talked a lot about some of the big dating sites out there like Lava Life and some of the old kind of industry standards. Well, as we both know, there's a lot of Web 2.0 sites that are trying to take advantage of the dating scene. And the first one we're going to talk about is crazyblinddate.com.
I think you look at the success of Match.com and what's the one, plentyoffish.com?
Yeah, they're really successful.
They make so much money that others are coming along and saying, well, we got to create something that is in that space but isn't exactly the same. Crazy Blind Date is Crazy.
It's crazy, you know. At the end
What's
of
the premise?
It looks like everybody wants love, and they're willing to try new things. And I can't say that I would like to try Crazy Blind Date, but it's an interesting concept. The idea is that you go on the site and you pick one of 4 cities where you're living. It works, I think, San Francisco and Austin and a couple other cities in the U.S. and eventually, hopefully, in Canada. And you pick the city, and then you decide that you want to go on either a Crazy Blind Date with one person or on a crazy double date.
So if it's a double date, would it be somebody you know and then a couple of strangers, or would it be all strangers?
I think you can do a combination of things. I think there's some flexibility. One thing I will say about crazyblinddate.com is they've done a really good job of designing the site, so they actually make it kind of fun, and I think it's very tempting when you first look at it.
Yeah, look, so I could choose, great, do you have a friend you want to go with? Yes, and we're sitting together? No, but I'm alone. Nope, I'd like to go with strangers. So now we're having a Crazy Blind Date. What, tonight? You could choose tonight, tomorrow, or some other time.
Exactly. So you can choose when you want to go on your Crazy Blind Date. And obviously, they're trying to play off the fact that a lot of people like to do blind dates in their lives. And so this is a concept that they're trying to take online. I was terrified when I first heard of this site. We interviewed the founders on our podcast, Net at Night, and I told them I would never do it in a million years. But I guess not everybody feels the same way.
Look, you can even put... here's a map of San Francisco, so you could choose where your date is going to be. Okay, I guess I'll do it in San Francisco proper. Let's see if well, let me see. Millbrae. How about that? Okay, and I'm going to choose that, and I could say what time it's going to be. This is a fun site to play with. It's actually kind of tempting.
It really is, and I think what's neat about it is that the concept is very exciting for a lot of people who are very brave. I would caution people that if you are going to go to the site and you're going to try it out, that you want to make sure that your blind date is in a public place, whatever you do.
Yeah, crazy is right, but I have to say I know some people who've used this and who love it. It's for people who are spontaneous, want to have fun. It's not necessarily to find love, just to have fun and meet people.
Exactly, and I think for the certain person, as long as they're safe, I think it's a great site. I know some women like myself may be a little intimidated by it, but there are women out there who use it. I think we've talked to a few of them, and they absolutely love it, and it's a fun way for them to meet new people. And, you know, all these different websites that are in the dating world, they tend to have different audiences and different communities. So if you've spent all your time and you've gone through the people at Plenty of Fish, you can move on to another site.
Exactly. Just, mix it up. Now, what's different about woome.com?
Okay, woome.com, and there's another speed dating site as well. This is a totally interesting concept. Now, the idea is you can do speed dating online. Do you know what speed dating is?
That's where you meet somebody for 30 seconds and decide whether you like them or not and then move on?
Exactly. So you're sitting, and there's someone right across from you, and then you talk to them.
Andy Walker used to do this.
Yes, exactly. And then you move on to the next person. So it's a really quick way of judging, based on your instinct, if you have some type of connection with someone. Well, now that WooMe, which is the best site out there I've seen for speed dating, has done this in an interactive environment. And so far, I think it's been pretty successful with users.
So I would click on that. There's a session starting in a minute. So I would click on that. I could choose for fun or will you be my woo date? And then what? I'm going to just see a bunch of videos one after the other?
Yeah, what you're going to see is you're going to be able to go through videos one after another. So you kind of join this room that's like a woo room.
Oh, they're live chat. It's live chat.
It's live chat. So you don't have to have a web camera, although they admit that it's more fun if you use a web camera. And you can have live chats with people or video chats. And you spend 60 seconds with them, and then at the end of 60 seconds, you have the option to say, this person has wooed me, and I want to put them on my list of people I might want to get in touch with, or say, no, this person hasn't wooed me at all. And
I like this because the problem with speed dating is that you're right there, and it's hard to reject somebody you're right in front of. This would be a lot easier to get a quick sense of somebody and say whether they're on your list or not.
Yeah, Leo, and if you have just a few seconds to play the video at the top right, there's a girl who does a demo of the site, and she goes through rejecting people.
She rejects everybody?
A car full of people.
well, let's go back again a little bit, because she's meeting people right here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Almost as cool as me in that time I scored some touchdowns in my game. Nebraska? Do you guys snowboard at all in Nebraska?
Actually, yeah, I love to snowboard. What about you?
Absolutely love snowboarding.
She's wooed. Hey, that's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. You know, what's so funny is that I find a lot of websites don't do a really good job of their video tutorials in terms of explaining how something works, but they did a really nice job of that, and I think it gets people more interested. But what I noticed, and I picked up when I watched the end of that video, that if you decide you want to get in touch with the people who have wooed you, you actually have to pay $1 to get in touch with them.
There's their model. So you don't pay for anything until you want to get in touch with them.
I think that makes sense. I mean, that would be great if you could go on a date and then decide you didn't want to pay for dinner because you didn't like them.
Yeah, no money, No, it was a loser, no money.
Exactly.
I like this. I actually am impressed by this. It's WOOME.com.
Yeah, I think design-wise, and I think as far as the functionality, they've made it so it's almost, it feels like a more safe environment in the sense that you are at a distance to this person. You get to see the person, so it's better than those other dating sites where people lie about their weight and their age and those other details. And you get to actually see if you have any type of chemistry online within a really quick period of time.
Video is a great, video chat is a great way to do that. I mean, you really are meeting with this person. Now, here's speeddate.com. This is real speed dating.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun, too, because you get to go through it so quickly, and you can just click on the button if you don't like the person and just skip on over them. So I think it's a more interesting concept than some of the other sites. And there's a third site on the list as well, which is also a speed dating site. And I would say that WooMe is a lot better than this, but you can see that the whole concept has kind of hit the web in a big way.
Yeah. So this one is the same idea where it's video, or is this one in real person? It looks like you actually would go somewhere and meet somebody for this one.
I think you can actually go somewhere and meet someone, and you can connect with them and sort of chat with them online, but it doesn't go to that extra distance that WooMe does, where you have the kind of video chats and the real sensation that you are at a speed dating type event and you're going through it. So WooMe is the best one if people want to try something else.
I agree. WooMe looks great. Now let me ask you, have you actually used any of these?
No, Leo, you know what, the whole online dating thing kind of intimidates me a little bit.
She doesn't need online dating. She's got suitors everywhere around the world. She's Amber MacArthur, for crying out loud.
You're still charming, Leo. That's good.
Amber, you're the greatest. Watch her on her own video podcast, CommandN.tv. Great video podcast, comes out every week. And she and I do an audio podcast where we chat with one another. It's called Net at Night, and you can find that on twit.tv. And I'm glad you could be on the show now doing this. This works really well. Thank you, Amber.
Anytime, Leo.
All right, we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Coming up, more of your calls. The lab continues right after this. Stay right here.
8, 7, 6, 5 commercials, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back to the Lab with Leo. I'm Kate Abraham, and now it's time for my tip of the day. Now, we're all trying to live healthier lifestyles. I've got a great site called mayoclinic.com, which is a huge encyclopedia of healthy tips and tricks to lead a better and healthier life. It's a really cool site. The great thing is actually a lot of people who are obviously physicians and doctors are involved with this site. And what it is like a huge database of diseases and conditions that you can click through, even a symptom checker, which is great for obviously rather than having to go to the doctor and picking up another illness whilst you're in the waiting room, you can check here. There's also the option of checking out some videos with regards to diseases, conditions, medical procedures, that kind of thing. So it's a very cool encyclopedia of medical issues.
The good thing is, I mean, there's so many medical sites on the net, but you know it's the Mayo Clinic. This is going to be authoritative and it's going to be valuable and accurate. You know, I know a lot of doctors both love and hate the internet. They love it that their patients can get information, but also patients will come in with crazy stuff that they've read on the internet. So send them here. This is at least, you know, going to be authoritative.
Starting point at least.
Yeah. Mayo Clinic.
Mayoclinic.com.
Good for them for doing that. That's great. Now, let's get another call.
Okay, we're actually going to Adelaide in Southern Australia, and this is Brian, and we're going to talk to him on Skype.
Hello, Brian!
Hey, Leo, how are you?
Wow, I'm great. You sound great, too. What can we do for you today?
Hey, Leo, I'm running a laptop computer, and I've got 3 USB ports. And if I run my webcam and my headset and the USB mouse at the same time, I get a little balloon pop up, and it tells me that I've exceeded the bandwidth.
Yeah,
that's something. Overcome this problem.
That's something new in Windows, that they've actually started paying attention to that. It says bandwidth, not power.
It says bandwidth exceeded.
That's interesting. I mean, there is limited amount of bandwidth per USB root hub, so it's possible that that's, I guess, a camera, microphone. Yeah, that's a lot of bandwidth. I mean, in the past, I've seen that power. I've never seen the bandwidth one. I mustn't be using enough bandwidth. The good news is that it depends on your computer, but many computers have multiple USB chips in them. They often have 2. So if you have a second USB root hub, you could use it. You might try plugging some of those things into other USB ports. For instance, does your computer have USB ports on the front and the back?
Yeah, on the back end of the side.
Yeah, you might try moving it to another port on the other side, just trying to find the second chipset. And if that works, then you're golden. If it doesn't, well, I don't know exactly what you could do. I mean, I think there's no other way around that except getting a second computer. You're using a camera, a microphone, and what else?
A cordless mouse.
So are you using those now as we talk?
I'm only using 2 of the 3.
Yeah. So as soon as you plug that third one in, that's when it all goes wrong.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. I would just try plugging them into different ports on the computer and hoping that the computer has dual USB chipsets. Most do. So most will give you that opportunity, and then you should be okay. But if you only have one USB chip, you're out of luck. You can only put so much data down that USB path.
Okay. I was wondering if a USB hub would solve the problem.
Well, it wouldn't, because ultimately that USB hub is going to go into the same port on your computer, right? It'll solve the power issue. If you get that error message, I frequently get that, using too much power, then having a powered USB hub will solve that. But it's not going to solve the bandwidth issue. You only have a certain amount of bandwidth. USB is capable of handling, and if you use too much, you could still use it. You can ignore that thing, but what will happen is you'll get image dropout on your picture, or you'll get audio dropout, or worse, if you're using a hard drive, and that's where you really want to watch out. You might have some hard drive issues, and you certainly don't want that. You can handle dropout on the picture or handle dropout on the audio, but the hard drive you don't want to mess with. All right?
No, definitely. Thank you very much.
Hey, great picture, great sound. It's amazing, all the way from down under. Thank you very much for calling. I appreciate it. And thank you, Kate, for getting that one set up.
Leo.
Now I'm going to take a walk over here, because we are going to take a look at a camera.
Yeah, we've got another USB. Actually, the USB problem can be really, really severe if you're using a USB 1.1. If you've got one of the older ports,
that would really be a problem.
That would really be a problem.
Yeah.
So, if it's a desktop machine, you have USB 1.1, you can solve that potentially by going up to a USB 2
I didn't even think that. That's another solution. Yeah. Even if he is using USB 2 and is getting the bandwidth issue, another way to get another USB chipset would be buy it. They're cheap. They're $10, $20. Buy a USB card. That's a whole new chipset, a whole new, that goes on the PCI slot, which has plenty of bandwidth. That's, of course, that's the solution.
And if you've got a notebook computer, you can often put it in the PC card slot on the side as well and get 2 extras.
Yeah. This is a USB cam. Yes. Creative's really been upgrading their cams. This is a nice looking one. Look at that.
This is the Optio Live Cam Pro. And this is, they've been doing a lot of great work here. And this one right here is the newest one. It's you can put it on the desk, as we see here. It's also got a clip underneath it. You can actually clip it to the back of your notebook screen.
Oh, that's good.
And it rotates as...
so that if it's on the screen, sometimes you do want to rotate it, point it down or up, so that it's pointing at you.
You can flip it in the other direction as well, if you like.
Oh, that's cool.
And
go right around
just
like
flip
that.
it like that.
Yeah.
And it does have a little bit of movement side to side here. Not a ton, but it does allow you to reposition a little bit on
Looks like it's got a microphone built in, which is kind of good.
It does have a microphone built in. It's got noise cancellation capability
pretty good mic
as well.
Yeah.
It's not a bad microphone at all.
I have to say, I'm looking at the image on here, and it looks high def. I mean, it looks spectacular.
Yeah, this is actually even one of the lower ones, so we have to do this sideways.
That's 640 by 480.
That's 640 by 480. You can actually
go all the way up to 20. You can do high def.
25, 40. I think that's actually interpolating it up at that level.
It's going to zoom, but not give you higher quality.
Way in. It's so it's
pretty good.
It's pretty good quality. So definitely, it's over a megapixel.
One of the things Creative's done, and Logitech's doing this too now, is they've really upgraded the USB cameras. These used to be very cheap, lousy optics, but I have to say that looks spectacular.
Right, and from a software perspective, there's a few extra things in here that are nice. You can do photo captures. You can actually record videos. You can use this with Skype or with your IM clients. It's got motion detection as well, so you can set it up on your computer and just leave it pointing at your room, and if someone's coming in stealing your chocolates or your little cookies over there.
No Tim Tams.
No Tim Tams. So it'll start recording when it detects motion in that area. We can just...
I have to say, this really looks good. Let's get a picture of Sean. Of course, remember, this is a professionally lit studio, so everything's going to look good in here.
So there we go. It will start recording when we start moving in this case.
That's neat.
And again, it also does time-lapse video. So really good overall. Comes with a travel bag for on the go, and it does come with a little headset, so you can use it with your IM clients.
Here are the pros and cons. Very good price for that picture quality.
Right, $80 is not bad at all, and it does come with a bunch of stuff, both software and little accessories as well. And Dell, I hate this about Creative, is they do Windows-only products.
Nuts.
I love their products to death, but I hate that part about it.
Of course, if you're a Windows user, you don't care.
No.
That's good.
So, and it does install a lot of extra stuff on the system, obviously, with all of these extra features that it puts in. So you might not want to install everything when you're setting it up.
Right. Well, I have to say, I'm very impressed. This looks good. Tell you what, thank you, Sean. Those are the pros and cons. This is the Creative, what's it called?
It's Creative Optio Live Cam Pro, or Live Cam Optio Pro. That's a mouthful.
It seems like a good choice compared to, say, the Logitech, which I use. Hey, coming up in just a bit, Ryan Ewell. He's going to share his secrets with you on how he finds those great free files as the lab continues. But first, ooh, I like this camera. It's time for our quick quiz question of the day. The question is, in which year was light first used as a carrier medium for an audio signal? We use it all the time now with digital optical audio connections. But when did it first happen? 1880, 1952, 1965, 1981? I'm thinking it might have been a while ago. Tell you what, stick around. We'll find out when the lab continues. Welcome back to the lab. When was optical cable first used to transmit audio? Now I'm thinking, probably 1965. What? Alexander Graham Bell did it in 1880 when he was first doing his research for the telephone. Of course, we use it now all the time with optical connections off of our computer and our TV sets. The SPDIF connector, and it transmits sound through light. It's very effective.
That's amazing.
Digital audio. This is Ryan Ewell. You know Ryan from Ewell's Jewels.
Yeah.
He's our free file whiz.
I try to be.
He's been a real boon to the show, booking all of our guests and so forth. And at the same time, he has to constantly come up with a new file every day. How does he do it? Well, he's going to reveal his secrets.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing you have to realize is that a lot of the work sometimes has been done for you. It's just a matter of finding it. So sites like, for instance, download.com, it's a place where you can go, and it's not just free files there. But
they rate them.
They do rate them, and they also have like a section that's just freeware. So right here is download.com, and there's a little link if you go down to, where are we here?
Right at the bottom.
Right at the bottom. Free software, download.com. I found it, and then I clicked on it, and now it's gone. There we go. All freeware, right there.
So they have search kind of subsets, and this gives you all this.
So
all the free
if you're
stuff.
looking for free stuff, you have to find the freeware. Now, I would say be careful, because free isn't always free. It's shareware. Yeah. Sometimes it's crippleware, where like the features are removed. So you got to do your research. Read the reviews. A lot of people review it. The editors review them. Other users review them. So just read what's going on and kind of be aware before you start downloading.
And I'm sure you check to make sure that these don't have spyware or viruses or adware. That it's clean.
Yeah, because when you download it,
sometimes it installs a bunch of stuff.
And I'll mention that in the install process. So there's SourceForge, there's I Use This, there's a bunch of
What is
sites.
I Use This? That's kind of a neat idea.
It's a Mac thing where people basically rate programs on if they use it or not. So if there's a high number, a lot of people are using it. So again, it's a site that not all the stuff is free, but there are free software there.
Go to Wakupa, W-A-K O-O-P-A. I use Wakupa. A lot of people use it. .com. A lot of people use this. They put a little bug on their system, whether it's Windows or Mac, and Wakupa tracks what you use, and you can follow anybody. Like I could follow Ryan. You could follow me and find out what software I'm using. Another good way to kind of spy on somebody, with their permission, of course, and figure out what they're using. Now, again, not all free, but it's like I Use This. Same idea.
Yeah, and I like these sites because there's a lot of people behind them really looking at the software for you. Now, another place to go is there's actual just individuals on the net that have their own lists. Like this is mytechlist.com. Someone just said, here's my top 10. You have to use these.
Right.
And
just browsing the net, looking at blogs, looking at what people are talking about. I follow Twitter. A lot of times people will mention that they're using something on Twitter, and I go, oh, I can't tell you how many websites, programs, news stories that I've learned about just by following friends on Twitter.
And I would say the barometer for this is if they have categories like the best video player, if they're not mentioning things like VLC, if they're saying the best
kind of judging
audio,
them based on whether they know about the other good stuff.
So know your big ones like Audacity, Firefox, and make sure that these sites that are listing these things have those there. Because if they don't, to me that's a red flag. Either they're clueless or they've got some other agenda going on.
That's a good point. They're not mentioning the big guys because they want you to use their spyware-ridden stuff.
Now, if you come across something that isn't on one of these sites, then it's down to research. It's just hard work where you got to Google it. Now, don't ever Google free. If you Google free, okay, it's going to come with a ton of stuff. Do freeware, shareware, and if you find a program, I like to use words like, let's say I found a program called Snagit. You know, we all know what Snagit might be.
From TechSmith,
but I'll Google Snagit review, or I'll do Snagit comparison, or Snagit versus, because a lot of times people find these programs and have actually done the research for you.
I like Snagit versus is a great.
That's
a good tip.
If you use versus VS, a lot of times people have like tried to find the same software you have, and they've tried all these different things. They tell you the differences. So Google a lot, and also Google the company that makes it, because I find sometimes if it's an unknown piece of software, I'll find out who makes this. Has people said, you know, be careful of this company? You know,
the internet is such a useful tool for this kind of research because there's so many users and they're all sharing their opinions out there.
So be a Google master. Now, the next part is obviously once you've done your research,
you found the perfect file.
Now you have to install it, and that's where
That's where your troubles begin.
Well, that's where you get your first impression, right? Because so don't go next on the install.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Please don't.
You're not
do
a
that.
typical user. You're supposed to pay attention to these
So
things.
the first thing I do is I have this free file. It's called Eulalizer.
You've talked about that before.
We have it before, and you can actually check out the end user license agreement to make sure this will analyze it for you and give you some red flags. Hey, they're talking about advertising. They're talking about without notice. If the words without notice appear in an end user license agreement, you got to be careful.
Know about that.
You might not know what they're talking about. So
good point.
Use that, and also this first impression of the install. I find that programs that put the default to having a quick launch icon, put the default to turning on when your computer starts up, put the they keep it as default, and you have to uncheck it. Right there, that's my first impression. These guys, they don't have my best interests in mind.
This is great.
You know, so
you'll downgrade them based on that.
Yeah, like if I have a program and it says quick launch and the default is on, I right away say, okay, that's a red flag. I'm going to be really careful with this program. You know, so there's these little things, and please read what's there, what directory it's installing to, because the worst thing you can do is just hit next. Okay, now it's on my computer. Well, where did it install it? All that kind of stuff.
Do you have a procedure that you go through for kind of once you've installed it, testing it out?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I want to mention there is if it says the default player, if it wants to be your default player.
Never.
Because
we've had so many problems with programs that take over from Windows Media Player or whatever, and they own your system.
Even if it's a legitimate program, check it out before it's the default player. So testing it out, verify it works with the default settings. So if it's a program that converts video, don't try to change all the bit rates. Just give it the chance to do what it's supposed to do with default settings.
See how well it does.
Because a lot of times you might find that once you're getting really into changing things before just testing the basics, you might make a mistake, and then the program actually does work, but what you've changed,
as well as it could.
Yeah, what you've changed will cause a problem. Have a firewall running. Make sure it's not trying to talk to the internet. Make sure it's compatible file friendly. So, don't have proprietary files being made if you can.
We got a lot more on the website, labwithleo.com. And of course, there are lots of Yule's Jewels. You've got a website now, yulesjewels.com.
Yes, yulesjewels.com. Go check it out.
Dude, you rock! That's wonderful.
We're trying to get the word out there.
Make it easy.
I have some more tips on there, so go to yulesjewels.com, check it out.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing your secrets.
Oh,
You're a brave man. Nah, nobody can do what he does. We'll have a final word with you right after this. Stay here. All right, I've been waiting the whole show. It's finally Tim Tam. Would you like a Tim Tam?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Tim Tam time. You said these are the same as penguins?
Yeah, they're called penguin bars in England.
And there's something you do with these?
Yes, a big hot cup of milky steaming hot tea.
Got it.
Bite off diagonal corners.
Like this corner?
And the other corner.
And this corner?
And then you dip it in and you suck through. As soon as the tea touches your lips, you then shove it in and eat it. It's like a big chocolate dream. What do you think?
Well, it doesn't work with green tea, I can tell you that. It doesn't work, it can draw right through it.
Hot, milky.
So if you want to be on the show, tell them what they should do.
labwithleo.com/tech questions. Fill in this form here, we'll get you on the show,
Thanks
get your
for being
problem
here.
solved.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.